Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be talking about object-oriented programming. So object-oriented programming is basically a process where we can model data with classes and objects. Classes provides a base template to model the data, and objects is basically the template of a class filled out. So I'll be using this code concept to explain classes and objects in object-oriented programming. Okay, so this portion of our code is our class, and with this portion of our code is this portion of our code is our objects, and this is us performing operations on our objects. Okay, so what does a class consist of? As I said earlier, a class is a base template of an object. So a class provides blank fields of what an object should have. Then an object is the blank fields of the class filled out. So when we are defining a class, the first thing we do is we type out class, then we type out our class name. So for this instance, we are creating a class for books. We are creating a class for books. So we are creating a base template of books. So we know that a book should have what? A title, an author, and a number of pages. So for here, we create a function called an init function. An init function is basically a function to initialize the attributes of an object. The attributes of the objects are the blank fields which the class should have. So for a class of books, the blank fields a class of book can have is titles, authors, and number of pages. So we call def underscore danda danda init danda danda self comma title comma author comma number of pages. Then we close that out. So the self here is telling the class that anytime it runs, it should associate the title and the author and number of objects to the instance of that class. The instance of a class is the object here and here. These two are objects, which are instances of the book class. So what is basically happening is that when we type out the init function, which is a mandatory function, anytime you are typing out, you create a class, you have to create the init function to contain the attributes of the class. Anytime you are creating a class, you have to create the init function to take the attributes of the class. So the attributes of this class are title, author, and number of pages. So when we call the objects here, book, then we specify the title, Brussels, the author, modularity, the number of pages, 255. And we do the same for book 2, title and author, Paul Gua, then number of pages, 300. The self here is linking the title to each instance of the class. So when we call book 1, when we call book 1's title, we want Brussels to come, not Anne. That's what the init function is doing here. It's linking this Brussels to this book 1, then this and this book 2. This is basically what the init function does. So every time you type a class, you have to type the init function to initialize the attributes of that class. Then you can create your own custom functions, which are called methods. Methods of a class are functions that can perform operations on class attributes. The attributes title, author, number of pages. We can create a function that can perform operations on those attributes. For example, here, the print here takes the self. So when you create a method, def is the usual way of creating functions. Def, your function name, your parameter or your argument in this box should be self, because we want to associate what's it called. When we call self, it should be self, because when we call self.title, we want it to be the instance it was called from. So book 1. So anytime we type self.title. When we run this method for, let's say, book 1, and we call self.title, we want to get Russell's. That's why it must have a parameter of self. So it's getting the self, then it's getting the self.title of that instance it was called, this, which is the book 1. So the book 1, the book self.title was written by self.author and has self.number of pages. So anytime you run this for a particular, every time we run this for a particular object, if it was book 2, we would have gotten the book and was written by self.author Paul Gore and has self.number of pages, which is at 300 pages. So this is basically what I'm talking about. So I'm going to comment these out and we'll run them one by one to discuss some stuff. So anytime you want to access, so for here and here, we created the objects which are instances of this class. So they are filling out the attributes of this class. So like this class was the base template, was like an empty form of how a book object should be. So and this is the empty form, and I've shown you how to type out the empty form, which is this init, which is used to type out the fields or the attributes the book class can have. Then this is your own custom generated function which you can use to perform operations on the instances what's called attributes. So let's say we have book 1, book 2. So when we call book 1.title, this is the way to access the attributes of title for book 1. So what is the attribute of title for book 1? When you run this, you get what? Russell's. Because book 1's title is Russell's. Then if you run this, you run the same thing for what's called book 1 dot author. You get Bill Laudy. If you run the same thing for book 1 dot number of pages, you get 255. So it's used to access the attributes of that object. If this were to be book 2, then you run this, you get book 2's number of pages. You run the author, you get book 2's author. Or if you run the title, you get book 2's title. So this is used to access book 2's data fields, the attributes. Then if you want to access the method, which is the function which is going to perform operations on the attributes of that specific class you are calling from, you have to call that function with your parentheses. How you normally type it, you call the object name, the variable you assign to the object. So in this case, book 1. Then we call the function show info. Then it doesn't take any other parameter. We don't have to specify self. Self is inherently specified. So self will associate book 1. So it will get book 1's attributes. So it will get book 1's attributes, which are Russell's, Bill Laudy, then 255. Then it will fill it out here. This is me accessing the attribute self.title, self.author. So when you run this, you're going to get the book to replace self.title with Russell's, then self.author with what's it called? Bill Laudy, then the pages with 255. So this is basically the concept of objects and classes. Objects which are instances of a class. So now we are going to do a short concept where we'll be modeling the data of students who just completed junior high school. They have names. Students who just completed junior high school. Okay. So we create a class called students. And our students, it's going to take certain attributes. Students have certain attributes, sorry. They have a name, they have an age, they have the school they went to. And in our case, we are saying they've recently completed the BC, so they have their results. So we create our init function, which I said is used to initialize the attributes of the function. It takes self so that it can link it to the object, the instance of the object you call it from. Then we have our name, the age, and the school. Then we can say results. Then self.name, all of this is to help it associate the variables to the instance that is called from. So the school goes to school, then self.results go to results. I think it's raining right here, so I'm not sure if you guys are hearing the back, the sounds of the rain. So if so, sorry about that. So this is basically used to initialize the attributes our student class can have. They can have a name, age, school, and results. So then we are going to create our objects. Let's say we have Amma. Amma is our first object. So Amma is a student. Amma is a student object. An object, an instance of the student class. So we call student. Then because you can use keyworded arguments to fill it out, we say name equals to, let's say, Amma. Or but I prefer positional arguments, so we just use Amma as the first name, Amma. Then age comes second, so let's say Amma is 16. Then the school she went to, let's say, Rich. Then her results. So for the results, we are going to make it a dictionary consisting of key value pairs of the course and the results, the score. Let's say she had 70 math. She had 80 science. She had 90. Then social. She had, let's say, 89. So this basically is a student object, an instance of the student class. Amma is an instance of the student class, an object of the student class. So students, the name is Amma, the age is 16, the school is Rich. The result is a dictionary of their core subjects, the course, and the score. So when we run this, nothing will happen because we've not called out any method or any attribute of the function. But if we were to come out, then say Amma dot, we should print Amma, which is an object, dot, let's say name. So give us the name of that object, Amma. Give us the name of that object. If we say to print Amma dot age, to give us age dot title, gives us, oh, we don't have any attribute of title, sorry, school, age, school. Then let's say the results, yeah. So this is basically the attributes, calling it out, dot, then the attribute name. Let's say we want to create another instance of the class, another object. So Kweku is another student. Let me name it Popna. So Popna is another student. So then we come and type Popna's data. The name will be Popna. Now the age should be, let's say, Popna is a little bit older, 17. He went to Najis. I'm not sure if I'm spelling this right. Najis. Then name, age, school, then the results. So you're going to copy this out. I'm going to copy this out. Yeah, I'm going to copy this out and what's the code? Okay. So after copying this out, we're going to, let's say, change the scores out. So they don't have the same data. 90. Let's make this maybe 60. Maybe 88. Then 79. So these are two different objects. Amma is an object, Kobna is an object. So we've created two different objects, aka two different instances of the student's class. So with this, we could do the same thing and print out the data. So print Kobna dot name to give us name, the age to give us age, the title to give us title. Why am I doing title? Age, name, title, school. Then I'm a little bit tired. Been coding all day. Sorry about that. Then results. So with this, we see we are getting the results as a dictionary. So we could create a method to actually polish the results out so that we can view the results way better. So we come back to our class and we define a method called show results. We could use this to polish how we view our results. As usual, it inherits from self so that we can get the instance of that object, its attributes. Then we say for, so we are accessing the, the results, and the results. So each time you should get the results. So for course, then the score, and self dot results dot items. So this is used to look through the key value pairs in the dictionary, the results dictionary, which will be created in each instance. So when that happens, it should want to print out the score in, so let's say self the results will return the whole data sets of that dictionary. So we just need to say course. So it should print out, no, let's do score in. So score in course. So it's basically going to say maybe 80 in English, 90 in this. But first, we want to print out the person had these scores. So let's say we call our self dot name had the following scores. So basically, I think that should be it. So we can come here and run the method in any of these objects. So Hopla does show results. So we see it formats the data for us. Hopla had the following scores: 90 in English, 60 in math, 88 in science, 79 in social. Yeah, we could run the same thing on Amma too. Amma had the following scores: 17 English, 18 math, 19 science, 89 social. We could also do another method that can take the results, the scores, the various scores, then sum it up and find an average. So let's say dev average, then it inherits from self as usual. Let me space this out so that I can get some space here. Okay. So dev average. So for the average, what are we going to do? Finding the average. So we are going to get we need the scores. So for now, we just need to call, let me say, sum of scores. So we're going to sum the scores up. We will do this by basically getting the results. So self dot results dot values. So this returns to us the values only, the key value pair in the dictionary. It only takes the values, which are the scores. Then we are going to run a sum function on it. It returns the values in a list form. So we are going to sum the list, then we get the sum of the scores. Then our average will be equal to the sum of the scores divided by the total number of elements in the list, which should have been len of the self dot results dot values. So we get this. We should have good. We get this. Then when we run this, we want to print out the person's name. So to make it easier, self dot name. So the person we are calling from, the object we are calling from, that name had an average of, then we pass in our average, the calculated average. Close it. Then we can come here and say, what's it called? Amma dot average. So Amma had an average of 82.25. You could say the same thing for Pabna. Pabna had an average of 79.25. Then we can create a pass or fail. So we can create another method called pass or fail. You can create any number of methods you want. Let's say I want to create a method called pass or fail. Then it will return pass or fail based on if the score is above 80 or below 80. So pass or fail. Usually it inherits from the self. Then we will take if the self dots. So we want to run the average again, so we don't have to go and calculate anything. We can just copy this code to make it easier. It should be a shorter process to do this, but just copy it. So this is basically going to take the sum of the scores and find the average out. Then we just say if average is less than 80, it should print fail. Else if average is when it's greater than or equal to 80, you want to know the person pass. Say the person pass, print pass. So we can call this function too, which is a method. So anytime I say functions or methods, they can be used interchangeably, but it's more for classes. You call them methods. So pass or fail, pass or fail. So Pabna failed because he had 17, an average of He had an average of 79.25, which is below 80. So pass or fail or return fail. But for Amma dot average. Amma had an average of 82.25, so pass or fail should return pass. Yes. So this is basically the whole concept of objects and classes in object-oriented programming. So in our next session, we'll be talking about various more inbuilt, functions, such as the init function. Then we'll be talking about inheritance and a whole lot of other things. So thank you for watching this, and see you next time. Sorry.